Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're retaking a deep dive into one of the most transformative periods in American history, the Civil Rights Movement from 1954 to 1968. This era wasn't just a series of protests. It was a profound moral, social, and political revolution that fundamentally reshaped the United States and continues to influence the fight for justice and equality around the world. So, how did this monumental struggle for freedom and dignity unfold? Let's explore the key moments, the towering figures, and the legislative victories that defined a generation and changed a nation forever. To truly understand the explosion of activism in the mid-20th century, we have to look back to the end of the Civil War. The period of Reconstruction offered a brief, hopeful glimpse of a racially integrated society, with African Americans gaining the right to vote, hold office, and access education. However, this progress was brutally rolled back. By the late 19th century, the South had implemented a system of state and local laws known as Jim Crow. These laws weren't just about separation, they were about subjugation. They enforced strict racial segregation in every aspect of public life: schools, hospitals, restrooms, transportation, and even cemeteries. This system was legally upheld by the Supreme Court's 1896 decision in Plessy versus Ferguson, which established the infamous separate but equal doctrine. Of course, in reality, the facilities and services for African Americans were never equal. They were consistently and deliberately underfunded, inferior, and designed to reinforce a social hierarchy built on white supremacy. This era of legalized discrimination created a powder keg of injustice, setting the stage for the powerful resistance to come. Generations of African Americans endured this oppressive system, but the desire for true freedom never died. The first major crack in the wall of segregation came from the highest court in the land. In 1954, the Supreme Court delivered its landmark ruling in Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka. This case, argued by the brilliant Thurgood Marshall on behalf of the NAACP, declared that state-sponsored segregation in public schools was unconstitutional. The court's unanimous decision overturned the separate but equal doctrine, stating that separate educational facilities are inherently unequal. While the ruling was a monumental legal victory, its implementation faced massive resistance. Many southern states defied the court's order, leading to dramatic confrontations like the one in 1957 at Little Rock Central High School, where President Eisenhower had to send in federal troops to protect 9 African American students integrating the school. The Brown decision was more than just a legal precedent. It was a powerful moral statement that energized the burgeoning movement and gave hope to millions that change was finally possible. Just 1 year later, the fight for civil rights moved from the courtroom to the streets of Montgomery, Alabama. On December 1, 1955, an African American seamstress named Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white man on a segregated city bus. Her quiet act of defiance was the spark that ignited the Montgomery bus boycott. Organizers, including a young and charismatic minister named Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., mobilized the city's black community. For 381 days, they walked, carpooled, and organized their own transportation systems, refusing to ride the city buses. Their economic pressure was immense, and their discipline and nonviolent resistance captured the nation's attention. The boycott ended in victory when the Supreme Court ruled that segregation on public buses was unconstitutional. More importantly, it established the strategy of nonviolent mass protest as a powerful tool for social change and thrust Dr. King into the national spotlight as the movement's most influential leader. The momentum continued to build into the 1960s, a decade marked by sit-ins, freedom rides, and voter registration drives, often met with brutal violence from segregationists. The moral conscience of the nation was being tested. This all culminated on August 28, 1963, with the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. 250,000 people, both black and white, gathered peacefully at the Lincoln Memorial in a powerful display of unity. It was here that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech. Standing in the shadow of Abraham Lincoln, he articulated a vision of a future where his children would not be judged by the color of their skin but by the content of their character. The speech was a masterpiece of rhetoric, weaving together the promises of American democracy with the moral urgency of the biblical prophets. It became the defining moment of the movement, an inspirational call to action that resonated across the country and put immense pressure on the federal government to act decisively. The wave of public support and the tireless work of activists finally translated into groundbreaking federal legislation. Following the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, his successor, Lyndon B. Johnson, made passing a comprehensive civil rights bill his top priority. After overcoming a lengthy filibuster in the Senate, Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 into law. This was the most sweeping civil rights legislation since Reconstruction. It outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. It banned segregation in public accommodations, such as restaurants, hotels, and theaters, and gave the federal government new powers to enforce school desegregation. It was a monumental victory that dismantled the legal foundation of Jim Crow. However, one major hurdle remained: the right to vote. In many parts of the South, African Americans were still systematically denied access to the ballot box through poll taxes, literacy tests, and violent intimidation. The struggle for voting rights came to a head in Selma, Alabama, in 1965. A peaceful march from Selma to Montgomery for voting rights was brutally attacked by state troopers on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, an event that became known as Bloody Sunday. The televised images of the violence shocked the nation and the world, galvanizing support for federal action. In response, President Johnson addressed a joint session of Congress, powerfully declaring, "We shall overcome." Just a few months later, he signed the Voting Rights Act of 1965. This act eliminated discriminatory voting practices and authorized federal examiners to register voters in counties with a history of discrimination. Its impact was immediate and dramatic, as millions of African Americans were finally able to exercise their constitutional right to vote, transforming the political landscape of the South. The period from 1954 to 1968 was a whirlwind of struggle, sacrifice, and triumph. The civil rights movement successfully dismantled the legal apparatus of segregation and secured fundamental voting rights for millions of Americans. Its legacy is immeasurable. It not only advanced the cause of racial equality, but also inspired other social justice movements, from the women's rights movement to the disability rights movement. However, the work is far from over. The movement's leaders always understood that changing laws was only the first step. Changing hearts and minds and addressing deep-seated economic and social inequalities would be a much longer struggle. The fight for racial justice continues today, building on the foundations laid by those brave activists who dared to dream of a more perfect union. Their courage reminds us that ordinary people, united in a just cause, have the power to change the world. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this history insightful, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into pivotal historical moments, and share this video with someone who might find it interesting. Let us know in the comments which part of this history resonates with you the most. We'll see you in the next video.